awesome. I think the spectacle and the business around this is really going to be something special and memorable and fun. However, if a guy who has never boxed professionally can compete, not just if he can compete with a guy who has never lost in professional boxing, who is proclaimed by the industry itself, let alone the writers and the fans, as the greatest to have ever done it, doesn't that put a significant dent in the integrity of the sport of boxing? It's either a real sport or it's not. And if some good, skilled, tough athlete who has never done it can come in and create problems for the best ever, isn't that a big problem?
He did do it as an amateur. He had 30-something amateur boxing matches, Conor, in Ireland. I believe he might have even
Is that right? He had that many?
Yeah, he had like 30-something amateur fights. I believe he was the Irish junior Olympic champ or something. He had a title over there for something. So he has done it at the amateur level. Obviously, that's a 3-round fight, not a 12-round fight. Yeah, I mean, you know, with Floyd's a master of range and timing. And that's also what Conor's good at, is range and timing. But he's not on Floyd's level. You know, it's an event. It'll be interesting. Floyd's not a knockout artist, so will Conor be able to get to the end of the fight? That's really the question for me. Is Floyd going to kind of pull back to make it look a little more competitive so it isn't so one-sided? But, you know, I mean, I got to call it an event, and I'm not knocking it by any means. But that's really what it is. It's an event.
So, but when you talk about, and I hear people make that argument all the time, that Floyd's a defensive fighter and he's not a knockout artist. It's like, I don't totally know where that comes from. I mean, Floyd has stopped plenty of guys, whether it's by TKO or by KO, but he has put plenty of guys down before the 12-round buzzer went off.
At 35, at 30, maybe at 40, not so much at 47.
Floyd is 47?
147. 147 pounds at welterweight.
Oh, my God. I was going to say, Floyd's only 40.
No. At 135 pounds, he was the guy. He was at 35, he was the guy.
Okay, but if he goes in there, I mean, there's other ways to stop a guy that's never done the sport before. One is TKO. Floyd doesn't have to put him down where Conor's looking at the lights. I mean, certainly if Conor McGregor could go 12 rounds with Floyd, 10 rounds, 5 rounds for that matter, isn't that a problem for boxing? Isn't that, because if you put the shoe on the other foot and you said, all right, Floyd's going to go fight Conor in MMA. Going to go fight for Conor's belt instead of for Floyd's. There is no chance that fight goes 5 rounds or 3 rounds or 1 round. And if it does, it's a big problem for MMA to take the world champion against a guy who's never done the sport. It's a big problem for the validity of the sport in terms of, hey, is this real or not? Are there actual moves and techniques that need to be worked on and refined over years in the gym, and skills you know, and moves that guys don't know, and unless they're in the gym and sacrificing to get there? It's either real or it's not. And if Conor can go, I mean, am I wrong on that? And, you know, you're a boxing guy, so I know you got to protect boxing, but I'm a boxing guy too. I'm also a boxing guy. I'm on the side of boxing. I'm on the side that this is not a contest in the least. However, Conor does not need to win. No. Conor doesn't even need to go 12 rounds. If Conor can get past 3 and 4 and 5, Sean Bay Mitchell's a former world champion in boxing. Floyd stopped him in the 5th round right here in Portland. I was there. So was I. What was that, in 2004-ish, 2005? So the point is, you take Conor, who's never done it, there's just a lot on the line for boxing. And the fact that so many sports reporters are giving Conor a chance has got to be either disrespectful to the sport of boxing, or it's not the sweet science that we've been told it is. It's one of the two. Or it can't be both.
Or it's just marketing the event.
Sure, but I mean, but Coach, if I was to take any other really good athlete, a really good athlete, you know, LeBron James, a good athlete, and say, okay, LeBron, you, great athlete, master of your field, you're going to go play Serena Williams in tennis.
Yeah. Trying to market that.
First off, I couldn't sell that. Nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to give him any kind of a chance whatsoever. And it's not going to do $1 billion in business. It's not going to do any business. They're not going to sell any tickets to speak of that are of record. They're not ever going to get on pay-per-view. But it might be a fun thing to see. But that's because people really respect tennis. They understand she's the best to have done this. He's a great athlete who's never done this. And what if LeBron came to us and goes, oh, no, I actually played some amateur tennis. I was on the high school team. No, you've never played. You've never played. We're not going to count it whatsoever. Sure. And he goes, no, this is how I spend my weekends. I go out and I play tennis. I really got this down, and I can beat her. No matter, and even if all that was true, and we could produce tape of it happening from many years ago in high school, there is no way to sell any reasonable person that he could go in as a great athlete and beat her in a sport that she is the queen of. You couldn't do it, but we're seeing it happen here. So there is a disrespect being shown towards boxing, period. That's a true phenomenon, because I've seen the reporters do it from ESPN to the FS channels. Colin Cowherd just did a thing on it. I don't know who he's with now, but the point is, these are reputable sports names. Jim Rome has given this a little bit of rope too here, and it's like, well, guys, it's not both ways. You either don't respect boxing, and that's what Floyd needs to go out and prove. That's the storyline here. Or boxing's a farce, and that's what Conor's going to go out and prove. But it can't be both. It's one of those two. And the biggest shock for me is how many people are saying, no, Conor can beat him. And I go, really? A guy who's never done it can beat that sport? The oldest sport in the world is boxing. The greatest to have ever done it is going to lose to a guy who's never participated. As a boxing guy, you've got to concede that point to me and go, yeah, if Conor beats Floyd, our sport has big problems that we didn't know it had. You've got to at least give me that much.
Sure. I was the first UFC. I'll go back here. First UFC I ever cornered was UFC 118. It was in Boston, and I had Mike Pierce on the undercard. And the co-main event that night was James Toney versus Randy Couture. I was torn because Randy's a guy from Portland, and now he's the guy that writes my paycheck. So I was a Randy guy, but I'm a boxing guy. That's James Toney. James Toney is the man.
Hey, I get it.
One of the greatest fighters of all time on the ropes. Like defensive fighters, like he is.
Defensive big guy, number one.
Beautiful. That guy could move like he could. You put him on the ropes and you still couldn't hit him.
For a big guy, he's number one. He goes down as one of the greatest ever defensively, but not for a big guy. He is the guy.
Yeah, because he fought from middleweight to heavyweight.
Yeah.
It was a pretty quick fight, right? It didn't last long. Randy went out, shot a low single, took him down, and it was over with. Floyd can do the same thing to Conor if that's what he chooses to do. Floyd's got some damage control because there's still a lot of people that are upset about that Manny Pacquiao Mayweather fight. They teased us with it for 6-7 years. And finally when Manny was past his prime, or if there were other things in play or whatever, they finally gave us this fight, and it wasn't even competitive. So where's Floyd sitting on this? Is he looking at the situation thinking, well, I could go out there and probably – and Floyd doesn't really knock people out, but, yeah, he could probably Lomachenko him, just go out, overwhelm him, and ref stops the fight possibly. Does Floyd go out there and do that at the risk of pissing off his base, his fan base again? Does he carry him to look at a little more, maybe people got their money's worth? I mean, there's a lot more questions than answers for this stuff. Like I said, I look at it. It had Floyd and Conor came to some type of an agreement, like, look, we're going to do this with 4-ounce gloves, but we're only going to box, but we're going to only wear 4-ounce gloves. Okay, there's a concession there. Hey, maybe Conor could land that. He's fought in 4-ounce. Floyd hasn't. It's going to be a stand-up fight. Conor can kick. Okay, low kick only. Something. Give me something, right?
Sure.
But the reality of it is
hey, that would change. I love what you just said there. That would change the dynamic. Let's
Absolutely.
make it a stand-up fight, but anything goes standing up. I love that.
Give me another variable.
I still take
maybe.
Floyd. I still take
me
Floyd.
Too. Absolutely, sure.
But in hypothetical world, which you just proposed, I love what you just said. If this was a stand-up only fight, we call it K1 rules.
Yeah.
Call it whatever the hell you want, but it's a stand-up only fight.
Give me something, but the reality of
that gets interesting fast.
Right? But the reality, unfortunately, is Floyd's going to pick the gloves like he always does. It's going to be in a boxing ring. It's going to be a fast ring, not a slow ring. And for what people don't understand what that means is if I've got a guy like Mike Tyson, the promoter will pad the ring, double pad the ring, because if you're fighting, for instance, James Quick Tillis, a guy that's got a nice jab and he moves his feet well, you want more padding so he's fighting like in sand, so he can't move as well. Floyd is a faster-ring guy because he likes those angles in boxing, so it'll be a thin pad.
That's legal. The commission doesn't sanction the pad. The promoter can choose. I
believe
a pad?
so.
Okay.
I don't know the details on that, but
I actually read that one time, and to my memory, it had nothing to do with the pad. It just had to be in like a 17 by 17.
Well, yeah, and sometimes they negotiate the size of the ring too. So there's another variable. Now, if I didn't know that Floyd was going it, because he's quick to tell you he's the A side, right? Well, you need a dance partner, but okay. If just give me some variables, Floyd. Give me something. Give me leg kicks. Give me 4-ounce gloves. Give me a 5-minute round.
Sure. Or put something on it. Hey, if I don't get this guy out of here in 3 rounds, he can have my purse. Put something on it. Yeah.
You gotta add some variables, because if everything's in Floyd's corner and he's obviously already probably 8-1. I don't know what the odds are. You got to give me something. And that's why it's an event to me, not a
I agree
fight.
with that. And that's what Chris Weidman called it. Chris Weidman is the first one to come out and say it's going to be an awesome event. It's not going to be an awesome fight, but the event's going to be awesome. And I agree with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think Conor has anything to lose. And I've seen some of the narratives begin to play out. It's MMA versus boxing. They did that to Tony, too. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, no, it's not. Excuse me. When Tony fought Randy, that was not MMA versus boxing. That was a boxing guy versus an MMA guy, but they're doing it in MMA. Mm-hmm. It favored Randy. Randy was a champion of the world in that. But the same thing goes here. It's like, no, this isn't MMA versus boxing. And a lot of people want to see Conor, get his face pushed in it like the puppy that missed the paper. But that's really not what's happening here. Conor's in a no-lose situation.
Absolutely.
In fact, not only is he winning because it's so hard politically to get that fight, not only does he win financially, but he also wins in the side of courage. Conor is a guy who has said, I will fight anybody, anywhere. I mean, he's gone after Tyron Woodley publicly.
Yeah. It
came after Jose Aldo when Jose hadn't lost in 10 years, stopped him in 13 seconds, went up a weight class, became the first ever mutual champion to have 2 belts in 2 divisions, sitting and reigning in the UFC at the same time. Conor's done some really amazing things, but for me, his stock goes up.
I agree.
Willing to go in there and put this on the line.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like I'm bad-mouthing the guy, because I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's great.
Oh, no, I understand.
Absolutely.
I understand completely. I'm not bad-mouthing him either. I'm just saying, for boxing, they're the one with the pressure on them. Mm-hmm. Floyd's got to go out, and he's got to not only dust him, but it's got to dust him quickly.
He's got more to lose than he's going to win, but obviously money is that variable.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that, but I just think that that's the bigger storyline. I think that there's really been a commentary on a phenomenon that has gone throughout the country where they do not understand and appreciate boxing, and I've been on that side of it too, where I've used my hands so much, had great coaches like you and Clayton and Curtis, and I really spent some time on striking, and then I've gone with boxers. I've gone with guys that this is all they've done. They didn't waste any of that practice time with the wrestling and the triangles and the tire flipping and all this. All they did is box since they were little kids.
That's it.
And I mean, it's a different experience. It's a different rhythm. When